Today we're looking at the 7 best carry guns of 2023. I'm going to break these down and figure out the best and worst one, the one that I'll be carrying the most, and the one that will probably stay in the safe all year long. And I'm going to use 5 different metrics to come up with the best and worst. Now, don't get me wrong, I picked these 7 because in my opinion, even though I don't care for some of them, I still recognize them as probably the best ones on the market right now. Lots to cover. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, what are these 7 best carry guns that we are looking at today? Well, 1 is the Spectre Comp, 2, CR920, 3, the Equalizer, the Glock 43X, the X Macro, the Hellcat Pro, and the Shield Plus. This is the performance center that I use for this video specifically. And the reason I did that is because I'm still working with this gun. I'm still trying to figure out where the disconnect is with this gun, and I think I've already kind of figured that out, because the original Shield Plus, the one I talk about all the time, is for sure one of, if not the best carry gun still, in my opinion. But I want to use this one. I want to change it up a little bit. So we're going to use 7 of the best carry guns. But remember, the Shield Plus, the original Shield Plus, is still right up there, and that's the one I carry most of the time. I just didn't want that one to be mixed in with these, because if you know my channel, you would know, oh God, he's going to pick the Shield Plus. You know what I mean? So kind of ruin the whole surprise, you know. So anyways, we're going to run the PC Shield Plus for this video. Without further ado, let's look at the first thing, and that's going to be the size and weight of these guns. So what I did here is, because a couple of these actually have optics still on them, is I put them in the order of their grip lengths. Okay, so the shortest of the bunch is the CR920 with a flush mag. Comes in at 4.2 inches high, and then of course with the extended mag it's 4.7, but we're using the flush mag for consistency's sake. The Equalizer comes in next. It's 4.5 inches high. Then the Performance Center Shield Plus, 4.6 inches high. Then the Spectre Comp, 4.8 inches high. Then surprisingly, the Hellcat Pro, which is again 4.8 inches high. Glock 43X, which is just a hair over 5 inches high. And the X Macro, 5.2 inches high. And then as far as weight, the heaviest one out of all of them is actually the Shield Plus Performance Center, and then going down the line, Equalizer, X Macro, Hellcat Pro, Spectre Comp, Glock 43X, and then the CR920. And then we have capacity. So the Glock 43X is 10, CR920 10, Spectre Comp is 12, Hellcat Pro is 15, X Macro is 17, the Equalizer with a standard mag is 10, the extended is 13, and then the really extended one is 15. Shield Plus, same exact capacity and magazines as the Equalizer. So it's kind of interesting when you look at the standard magazine capacity, that does not coincide necessarily with weight or height. Now you may be asking, why does any of this make a difference? Well, if you're new to concealed carry, then one big thing to know is that when you carry inside the waistband, specifically, every ounce, every inch, every half of an inch, it all matters. So we have the difference here from the X Macro, which is 17 rounds, to the CR920, which is 10. And we have 21.5 ounces compared to 17. So you have roughly 4 ounces there, so 1/4 pound extra inside of your pants. And then of course you also have more capacity, which is going to be a little bit more weight as well. So just because it has the most amount of capacity doesn't mean it's the best gun. But just because it's the smallest gun also doesn't mean it's the best gun. Because typically the smaller the gun, the harder it is going to be to shoot. And that's why we have 5 different categories to try to break this thing down and find out which one is the best. We've kind of talked about where they have their place as far as size and weight, but we haven't even got close to seeing which one is the winner. Let's move on to the next category, which is going to be concealability. So the way they carry is very much like you would expect, right? So the CR920 is going to be the lightest and the shortest option, right? So it's going to be the easiest to carry out of all these, technically speaking. Now, I know sometimes people will say, oh, well, I carry a full-size gun and I carry it with 3 extra magazines all day long, plus a backup and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Well, that's fantastic. Not all of us can do that. And so the advantage of these types of guns is that you get really good capacity and you don't have to carry a full-size gun with guns, like I'm about to show you, that shoot really well for what they are. You know, if you have back issues, which I am very accustomed to, that may dictate how you carry. If you're a female, tighter fitting clothing, that may affect the way that you carry. Are we talking inside the waistband? Are we talking outside the waistband? There's a lot of factors that go on here. But each way I'm going to show you is inside the waistband, and I tried to stay consistent with the holster, mainly using the Oath holster from Tolster. This is my primary way I like to carry. If it's not an Oath from Tolster, it's a profile, like this one right here. Love this holster. I love this setup, right? Super minimal. You need a good gun belt too. That's going to make a big difference in how much gun and how much weight you can carry comfortably. Now, another thing to consider with the grip length, the height, okay, is the longer the grip, the harder it will be to conceal. But the easier it will be to get a full draw out of your holster. And then a little bit more material, meaning your shirt, that you will have to clear out of the way. So there's quite a few things to think about. Biggest thing is just getting the material out of the way. So this is an X Macro in an Oath holster from Tolster Core Essentials gun belt. That's what I'm going to be rocking here. It's basically got a full-size grip, so getting to it is going to be easier. Getting your clothing is super important in this whole process of drawing anyways, but you really got to be mindful of that. You got a bigger grip, longer grip, so you really got to get that clothing, whatever it is, out of the way. But being able to grip and have a full-size grip out of the holster, really easy to do with this gun. Turn to the side. From the side, you can see there's a little bit of printing there. Again, how many people are going to notice that in their daily lives? Not many. Getting to it, boom. Quick. Let's go to the next one. If you have a gun like the shortest gun we have here, which is the CR920 with a flush mag, of course, it's going to be easier to conceal, less printing, but it will be a little bit harder to get to that grip to be able to unholster and make your draw. CR920 uses Glock 43X holsters, so we're good there. Same profile holster. Shortest gun we have here, right? Shortest gun we have. When your arms are relaxed too, by the way, how many people are going to see this little tiny bulge? Not many. Now again, the shorter the gun, the better it is for printing purposes, harder it is to get out of the holster. All right? So just keep that in mind. Typically, maybe a little bit harder to shoot as well. So there's always a little bit of give and take. You know, none of these are perfect. So what I was looking for is the best balance. So from the lightest gun to the heaviest gun, you're talking about roughly 5 ounces, which is a little more than 1/4 pound, right? So you have to consider the weight, of course, but with a good gun belt, a good holster, you're going to alleviate a lot of that. And I'm strictly talking inside the waistband carry. you want to carry outside the waistband, the Contour holster from Tolster is a good option. You'll notice with all the Tolster stuff, it's very minimal design, which is why I like these guys a lot. You know, that material doesn't cause you to sweat. It's a fantastic setup. Plus, the retention is solid, dude. So there's that, and it's adjustable retention at that. Another positive thing with all of these guns, you'll notice the width, they're all right at 1 inch, some a little bit less, okay? So that will cause your pants to stick out, but because these are all slimmer profile guns, that won't be a huge issue. All right, Glock 43X in a profile holster. This is my favorite type of holster, by the way, but the profile isn't set up for optics ready, or pistols with the optics, I should say. But this is my favorite type. Easier to get on, still secure. Really like these holsters a lot, right? 10-round gun, and it is a little bit longer, right? It is a little bit longer. It's the longest of the lower capacity guns. So that does two things for you. It's going to make it a little bit harder to conceal, just a little bit, but it's going to make it a little easier to get a full grasp on the gun. So, getting to it, no problem, as long as we get that clothing again out of the way. Boom, we're good to go. Not a bad setup at all right here. All in all, if I had to choose one as far as the best balanced wise, as far as the weight, the height of the grip, and the easiest to draw, plus considering capacity into this, I'd probably say the Spectre comp is right there. It's very Shield Plus-ish in its size, right? So you get 12 rounds, it's not the most capacity, but I really like the way that gun carries, along with the Shield Plus. And so this is the balance part of the equation, 4.6 inches high, so definitely not the tallest, 10-round flush capacity, and the heaviest of all of these guns. Now we're only talking ounces, but again, ounces can make a huge difference, you know, when we're talking about this stuff. So it's going to be a little bit heavier than the rest of the guns, but one heck of a shooter, right? 10 rounds. But of course, the easiest gun to carry here is the CR920. So if you're just looking for the smallest possible 9mm you can carry that is also the lightest, this may be a good option for you. If you're looking for the one with the most capacity, well, that's the X Macro. If you're looking for a good in-between balanced option, that's where I like the Shield Plus and also the P365 Spectre comp. All right, so now let's talk about the shootability, and this is where it became a little bit harder for me, honestly, because as you're going to see, these guns are really, really close when it comes to the way they shoot. Now, one thing you will notice, I took the optic off of the Hellcat Pro. I also took the optic off of the Performance Center Shield Plus. You know, I don't like optics where I can't change the brightness. And I noticed that the Crimson Trace is so faint, I couldn't even half the time tell the damn thing was on. I'm not a fan of the window. I just don't like the way it looks at all. And the same kind of goes for the Hex Wasp, man. I was a fan of this when I first got it. This thing died. Now, okay, it's just the battery. I understand that. But it died after like 2 seconds. It's supposed to have 2-year battery life. And I got this thing when it was brand new. But regardless, I don't like that optic either. I'm really kind of picky when it comes to optics. The Romeo Zero Elite, although it's not my favorite optic either, it does a better job than the Crimson Trace and the Hex Wasp, I will say that. But as far as the best optic on the table, that goes to the EPS Carry. This thing is fantastic. I can adjust the brightness if I want to. The dot is super clear. Now I have astigmatism as well, so I'm always going to get a little bit of bursting effect, right, from the dot. But regardless, Holosun makes some of the best dots, and that is the clearest one to my eyes and the best one on this table. So I didn't want that to really be a factor. I used the dots that I know I can shoot well with. I took the ones off that I knew I was going to complain about. And so you've seen with the Shield Plus Performance Center, the standard sights need an adjustment. So I got to get those adjusted correctly. I was going to overcompensate for that, but then I was like, let me just show how it is. You know, I haven't done anything to that except take the optic off. So I just wanted to give you an idea of where it was hitting. Although it was consistent, it was far over to the left. Ooh, that gun needs an adjustment. What I did is I took that god awful Crimson Trace optic off this thing. I like Crimson Trace, a lot of their stuff, but not their little red dots. They just absolutely suck ass. But it looks like I need to now adjust this because I'm printing over to the left really heavily, and that's not me pulling the shot. So, yeah, I'll have to adjust that another time. I just don't have the tools to do it right here, unfortunately. But when it came down to it, I think the X Macro, the Equalizer, and the Glock 43X were probably the most consistent ones. Hell, I was even really consistent with the Hellcat Pro, and I don't like the sights on these guns. But just because I don't like them doesn't mean they're not usable and doesn't mean you can't shoot well with them. All right, the X Macro, this dot is actually working. Let's try it out. Not too bad there. Not too shabby at all. This dot starting to grow on me a little bit more than it was for sure. It's got a nice, I really don't understand manufacturers. They put some of these dots on here and you can't adjust the brightness on them manually. It's going to be adjusted to your ambient light, which on the Crimson Trace is, I mean, you almost can't even see it. The Hex Wasp isn't working. This one at least is bright enough where I can actually see the dots. So something definitely to keep in mind when you have some of these little guns with dots on them. Now, the difference here is that with the EPS carry, you can adjust the brightness. So let's try this one out. Man, the ejection on that one is a little wild, huh? But the consistency in the shots and how well this thing shoots. The only thing is, if you shoot off of the reset, you're probably not gonna like this too much because the reset, it leaves a little bit to be desired as far as how much you can actually feel that reset. You can feel it more than you can hear it, but it's still not the greatest reset in the world. So just keep that in mind. But the results kind of speak for themselves. It's an amazing shooter. Glock 43X. Missed a couple there. Not too bad though on that little 8-inch plate. When it came down to it, felt recoil, the Equalizer was the least amount of felt recoil on the table. I think the Shield Plus is right there with it. When it came to the most felt recoil, the Glock 43X and the CR920. The biggest difference from there is you just have more rounds in some of these than others. They really all do a very fantastic job of shooting well, right? And then you can make an additional adjustments. Obviously, we're just talking about stock guns the way you would buy them. but you can make additional adjustments to aid in them shooting even better. The best trigger on the table, the Spectre Comp and the Shield Plus, in my opinion. The X Macro is right there with it. This one feels a little bit more refined than the X Macro, but those two have the best triggers for sure. The Equalizer is no slouch. It doesn't have a great trigger, it's just a good shooter, right? So those two things always don't correlate with one another either necessarily. A lot of times they do, but sometimes they don't. The thing you'll find on the Equalizer is the consistency, right? So we hit the wall here, it's got an internal hammer instead of a striker, and it breaks. If you shoot off the reset, like I said in the video, right there, you can hear it when it's here in a controlled environment, but if you shoot off the reset on the range, you'll see what I'm talking about. Not terrible, you can feel it at least, so and the results kind of speak for themselves. This is a fantastic shooter, just doesn't have the best trigger on the table. What does that matter in a self-defense situation? When we're talking 3 to 7 yards, somebody's coming at you, right on top of you, probably not much. As long as you practice, you got a good hollow point, a good self-defense round, I think any of these guns will do a fantastic job. It is kind of crazy when you look at a gun like the CR920 though, which has 10+1. You look at the X Macro, it has 17+1. So you could literally have like 34 rounds on you if you carry an additional magazine. At most, you're gonna have what, a 10 and 13 probably, right? So you'll have 24 if you include the one in the chamber. That's way spread out there. I don't like those sights, and I don't like that trigger either on the CR920. Everything about the gun is like a custom carry gun, and I've had nothing but a reliable experience. But out of everything they did with this gun, similar to the Hellcat, Mrs. Techshot was saying the same thing, and I agree with her. That trigger just sucks. I'm not a fan. X Macro. Just pulled it. The Equalizer as well. You could have 10+1 in the pipe. That gives you 11, plus your 15 round extended. You're talking about 26 rounds of 9mm on you, man. That's pretty freaking awesome, dude. To get these kind of numbers back in the day, you had to carry a full-size gun. And regardless, if you have a magazine issue or something like that, it's a good idea to carry a spare mag. Anyways, even if it's not a reload sake, even if it's just something where you have a magazine failure, it's a good idea to have one of these on you. So they all shoot pretty well. Now let's talk about some of the features that set these guns apart, and let's find a winner for the best carry gun in 2023 out of these 7. So now let me cover some features, some specific features, maybe a few on each gun, at least 1 or 2 that will give you something else to think about. I don't want to cover them all in depth because I've done in-depth reviews, sometimes multiple reviews or updates on each one of these, which I will leave down below. I'll leave those in the description to make it super easy for you, okay? So let's start with the Spectre Comp. When it comes to custom carry guns straight from the factory, here you go. This is amongst the best, right? You have the compensator built right into the gun, so that's going to keep the recoil down. It's an amazing option, an amazing setup, the way they have designed this gun, right? The best set of pistol sights on any gun, period. I love that bright green dot. It's a night sights at that. It's really fantastic. You have the TIN gold trigger and barrel there, and then of course the LXG laser engraved grip module. All in all, this is one of the most comfortable guns in your hand as well, at least in my hands. It is a very comfortable and just fantastic shooter for sure. Cons on that gun, it's expensive, right? $1,200 MSRP expensive. It's a lot of money for a carry gun. CR920, although it is expensive, not as expensive as the Spectre comp, right? And I don't think it's as good of a shooter though either. But when it comes to a custom carry gun, right, you still get a really awesome gun here as well. Fluted barrel, decent set of sights, optics ready, nice grip texturing. Think of this as a custom Glock straight from the factory. Pretty much everything about this gun I like better than a standard Glock. Or if I were to modify a Glock, which I really don't modify any of my guns, especially my carry guns, I would make most of these changes. The biggest drawback I think to this gun, honestly, is the trigger. I'm just not a huge fan of this trigger. I think it could be much better. It's like they went through this gun all the way and they're like, how can we make a Glock better? And then they decided to keep basically the same trigger. Hellcat Pro. You know, before the X Macro came along, 15 rounds in a carry gun is pretty incredible for the size of this gun. You're talking about a Glock 19 size gun that is lighter and thinner, by the way, than a Glock 19. You may be thinking, well, how much lighter is it? Well, Hellcat Pro, 1 pound, 4 ounces. Glock 19, 1 pound, 8 ounces. 15 rounds and 15 rounds. Check it out. Right? So, pretty impressive, man. Sized weight capacity ratio. Springfield Armory really came up with a banger in this specific design, right? So, if you're somebody that doesn't like the smaller single stacks, this may be a good option because you get a full-size grip with a slimmer profile gun, right? So, pretty cool, man. Front and rear slide serrations, of course, optics ready, and a decent set of sights. I like the front sight. I'm not a fan of this U-notch drop in the bucket type of deal. I don't like it at all. And I'd have to say that's probably the biggest drawback with this gun is not only do the stock sights, they're not great, but also the Hex Wasp. I can't believe it died as quickly as it did. Again, it's just a battery, but man, they said 2 years. I got like 2 seconds out of it. Shield Plus. You want to talk about a good trigger on a gun, this is amongst the best. Boom. Predictable. Not super light, but predictable. Also, it's a performance center. So you get the fiber optic sights, plus it's optics ready. Again, that crimson trace that came with it. I know this looks so stupid, man. I get it. I know it looks dumb. I just got to put the plates back on here or just get more optics for these things. But regardless, the Shield Plus is amongst one of the best guns for concealed carry. Now this one, of course, like I said, I got to do a little bit of an adjustment on the sights. But not only do you get a comfortable gun in the hand, a little bit longer barrel on this one as well, but you also get that fantastic trigger and the extended 15 round mags. So why this gun is so good is because you almost get the shortest gun on the table, or one of them, the third shortest, I think, as far as height, but then you can also add that additional 15 round mag. So you have those magazine options that make this gun really fantastic. Glock 43X. Okay, so if you are a fan of optics or red dots on your pistols, you can get the MOS version, of course, and it's a Glock. If you're familiar with Glocks, you like to run Glocks, this may be a good option for you because generally speaking, it is really familiar. 10 rounds, slimmer, way slimmer than what it's going to be for, again, we'll bring in the Glock 19 there, right? Way slimmer, lighter than the Glock 19 as well. Biggest issue I have with this gun, not only am I not a fan of the trigger, because this is not a standard Glock trigger, it's a little bit heavier, but I'm also not a fan of how long this gun is, considering you only get 10 rounds. Now, I could almost look past that because of how comfortable it is. But when we compare that to the Hellcat, I don't even have them lined up properly. It's like you get 15 rounds in the Hellcat you get 10 in the 43X. I never thought this made much sense to me at all because they tried to compete with the P365 with that same grip module. It just seems to be a little bit too long for the capacity that you're getting. Also, the sights are just junk on that gun. So there's that. One negative thing on the Performance Center, although I do like the fiber optics, I can't believe they're as far off as they are, honestly. But also, you got the heaviest gun on the table here, and for a 10-round gun, it would have been nice if they could lighten this gun up a little bit more than what they did. The Equalizer. Super easy to rack this gun. Anybody could pretty much rack this gun. You have carpal tunnel, you're an older person, or female, whatever, this gun could literally be for anyone as far as a good carry gun. Love the EPS carry, best optic on this table, hands down, and one of the best shooting carry guns I've ever shot. This and the regular Shield Plus are amongst the two best ones. Cons, the grip safety. It's just a little bit, I don't know, aesthetically, I don't like it, and also I just wish it wasn't there. I just wish it wasn't there. I hate it. And then there was the X Macro. Again, built-in comp, awesome set of sights, just like the Spectre comp. And the grip module on this and the way they designed the magazine, 17 rounds out of this gun. It is incredible, the technology and the times that we're living in, man. Fantastic job there. I think the biggest con on this one, for some, may be the size. It may just be a little bit too big for the benefits that you get. And by the way, the only two that are on the table that do not come with an easy way to mount a light or a laser are the Shield Plus and the Glock 43X. Now the P365 has a proprietary rail, but it can still be done, whereas the X Macro uses a traditional rail because of that the lower that they're using there. So just something I wanted to point out. I don't rock them on my carry guns, but if this is going to be your only gun, then that is something you want to consider, especially for home defense. Or if you're out at night a lot of the times, or you don't want to carry a spare light, that is something you may want to consider. The moment you've all been waiting on, without further ado, which one is the best carry gun on the table? Well, this is where it comes down for me personally. CR920, I've not spent enough time with it to call it the best carry gun. Plus, I'm not a fan of that trigger. I'm really not. I'm gonna go ahead and take this one off the table. The Shield Plus Performance Center. As much as I love the regular Shield Plus, I still have to spend some more time and get this thing dialed in. It's just not there for me. I'm not going to carry this gun until I get this thing dialed in, at least the irons. For now, it's gonna stay in the safe. Probably, coming to no surprise, the Glock 43X. I'm just not a fan of this gun. Just straight up, I don't like the sights. I don't like how long it is, considering you only get 10 rounds, and I hate the trigger. It's a decent option. It really is, and I could shoot it, but just not a fan. Outside the waistband carry, I love the X Macro. When we're talking about inside the waistband carry, though, a little bit too much for me, man. Just, it's just a little bit too much weight. And I feel like there's better options when it comes to size and weight and all of that. So that's going to leave us with three options here. Hellcat Pro, hate the sights and not a huge fan of the trigger. We're going to get that one out of here too. That leaves us with two. Is anybody surprised that we have a Smith & Wesson and a SIG on the table? Somebody's going to say, oh my God, this guy is such a shill. Whoa, join the freaking club, dude. You ain't the first or the last one that's ever going to say it. But when it comes to point of aim, when it comes to the way I shoot them and the way I connect with them, these two guns are amongst the best in this crowd of 7 that we've come up with. Now, the Equalizer. I like this gun a lot. I just got my Tolster holster for it, which I'm stoked about because now I've been able to carry it confidently because I haven't up to this point been able to do that. And so up until I got my holster for this, I've been carrying the Spectre Comp and of course the Shield Plus pretty much this whole time. So I would say, here's kind of where I'm at with it. This overall can be the best carry gun for almost anyone. It is a little bit heavy though. And so I think that may be a factor for some people, but overall, you have a short enough grip to conceal really well. You have a heavy enough gun. You have enough weight there to really make it a comfortable shooter, but then you have a light enough slide where anybody can use it. It's a fantastic, really super fantastic setup that they've done here. And still one of the most surprising guns, man, because I wasn't a huge fan of the EZ. I really wasn't. I understood its purpose, but they really took the EZ concept and made it 10 times better with the Equalizer. Now, if you're not afraid to spend some money, the Spectre Comp is where it's at. Now, I know people will say, yeah, man, but if I have to use it in self-defense, who cares? You know, if you shoot this gun the best, right? And you invest that kind of money into a gun that you shoot, I mean, what's your life worth? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't understand that concept, you know? If you don't have the money to spend on something like this, there's great options that are not this much money. And yeah, it's a little bit too expensive, in my opinion, but you get one hell of a custom carry gun for that price. It's not like you're getting some cheap piece of junk, you know what I mean? So, and if it gets forfeited in a self-defense situation, and that's what you have to be upset about, well, that's a good thing because that means you're alive, okay? And plus, if you're a USCCA member, they replace your firearm in a self-defense, in a rightful self-defense shooting anyway. So, you know, there's that. Now that I've given you all of my opinions here, I would love to hear yours down in the comments below. Which one do you like the best and why? What was your process for choosing your carry gun? Which ones did it come down to and why did you choose the one that you do? Or which one are you looking at for your first carry gun maybe? Love to hear those things down below. Again, if you want to support what I do, you can subscribe right here, hit your notifications so you never miss a video. You could join the channel or become a patron for $1 a month and get a lot of cool access and exclusive content as well. Again, big thanks to you guys. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down. Three misses, that penis target is just swinging away. Let's get the competitor and try that one.